Welcome to MadCon 2020 and Claritas' webinar on closed loop marketing. What is it and why you need it? I'm Patrick Acosta and my partner Omer Jilani are going to walk you through the next 30 minutes on how Claritas is leading the industry in consumer insights. Today our goal is really to help you understand three things: how you can better pinpoint potential customers more precisely, engage with them when and where it matters most, and accurately measure the impact of your campaign and optimize it so that you're driving a better ROI. A little bit about myself before I jump into things. I've worked 20 plus years in the advertising world. Started as an assistant media planner all the way through media director, also ran analytics teams. Also spent time on the client side at AT&T, helping them manage their $2 billion media budget. But what I really loved about my job was understanding my clients' customers. I've taken that passion, and now I work for Claritas, and I get to do it every day with different clients as the year goes on. So who is Claritas? Claritas is a data-driven marketing company. Matter of fact, it's in our DNA. When we started 5 decades ago and we rolled out the first syndicated segmentation system in Prism, it was the start of who we were. And that innovative spirit continues today. Matter of fact, over the last several years, we've rolled out 2 major initiatives. The first is we acquired a company called Geoscape, and we launched the first multicultural syndicated system, which I'll talk about in a minute. The second big initiative is we acquired 2 companies, Barometric and AcquireWeb. And what that allowed us to do was create one of the largest identity graphs in the industry. You might be asking yourself, what's an identity graph? Well, if you think about a large Excel spreadsheet, and every row being a consumer, and every column being an identifier, like a name, an email address, a postal address, a digital ID, social ID, a mobile ID, and an IP address. And if you think about that, think about the fact that we have 600 million devices in our identity graph, over 125 million active email addresses, and a mind-blowing 5 billion data points come in every month. Think about all the things and possibilities that the identity graph allows. I want to take a step back though, because even in 2020, we have more choices for syndicated research. And as marketers, it causes a big issue, because I know that every one of you has at least 1 or more syndicated studies. It could be MRI, Nielsen, YouGov, Polk, and the list is growing every single day. And I know some of you are even going out and fielding research to help fill in those gaps that syndicated data leaves. And even some of you have gone out and performed customer research. And so you have all these tools. And the number one complaint that I get from clients is, Patrick, like the customer segmentation company came in, they presented some good work and they left. And when we went to, as a marketing team and a media team, to go activate against it, we didn't know what to do because it's not tied to any of our tools and systems. It's not in MRI, it's not in Nielsen, it's not in LiveRamp. And so while we loved it, there was a disconnect. So then the question becomes, so how do you bridge that gap? Well, it starts with data. And Claritas has one of the largest data sets out there. We have 10,000 highly predictive demographic and behavioral indicators at our fingertips. I talked about the graph and all the devices that we have there. One of the other benefits of working with Claritas is we stress the importance of privacy safe and compliant data. And going back to the graph and the power of it, even if you have great data, again, going back to having it linked to all these other tools and data sets that you have, the graph allows us to do that. And without the graph, it would not be possible. And so we have that unparalleled linkage. Internally, we have an acronym like all companies have, and we call it IDO. And what IDO stands for is Identify, Deliver, and Optimize. Identify only means knowing who your best prospects are and your customers are. Deliver is knowing when to deliver your message to the right person at the right time and at the right place. And Optimize takes all those activities and makes sure that it's driving that ROI you're looking for. So we just talked about our 3 pillars: identify, deliver, and optimize. And now we're going to talk about how we go about doing that in each one. So let's focus on identify. So as marketers, you have lots of questions, right? How do I find prospects that look like my best customers? Can I identify all these people who are coming to my website? I feel like I'm missing that low-hanging fruit. And am I able to target just people based on a demographic, a behavior, or an attitude? We're going to answer some of these questions as we go through the identify section. The first thing we want to talk about is syndicated segmentation. This is what we've been known for 5 decades, and we're the best at it. We started with Prism, which is now Prism Premier. It is the leading demographic and consumer lifestyle segmentation system in the industry. It's what I use at my agency and at AT&T. For industries like the financial industry, where regulations are tight and they want to understand more things around the consumer's financial and investment behaviors, we built Cycle Premier. And similarly, in the telecom and technology industries, where techno adoption is so important, Connection fits that nicely. Now, a little earlier, I talked about the acquisition of Geoscape and building a multicultural segmentation system. That's what Culture Code brings. We can look at country of origin and really important things like acculturation, so that when you send your messages and build your plans, you're doing it in the right way. And when the syndicated segmentation systems aren't right for you, or you have unique needs, we have an army of world-class analysts that will help you build your own custom segmentation. Now, this is not, we don't stop here. Again, you may not have the time or the budget to perform customer segmentation, right? Or you want to focus on a very specific variable. Well, based off of those 10,000 plus data points, we've built over 8,000 custom audiences that you can turn on in your system and go out and reach these people. So regardless if it's custom segmentation, lookalike audiences, or these multi-behavioral audiences, Claritas has some way for you to go out and target the right customers to help drive your business. Now, one of the things that gets me really excited about this data and these new capabilities, and especially our identity graph, is the fact that clients are coming to us in waves saying, I have all these people who come to my website and I don't know who they are. Matter of fact, data says that 90+% of customers who come to your website, you can't identify. Now you can go out and retarget them, but you don't know who they are. And through Claritas's data, and especially that identity graph, we can help you identify who they are, and also provide really important information like name, address, email address, so that when you're ready to go out and market to them and send them the right message, we can help you in that area. I'm going to share a quick case study of how I use Claritas data in my daily life when I was working at the agency. Whenever we would win a new client, the first thing we would do, first meeting we would have, is we would sit them down and say, we need to understand your customers, because that's the only way we're going to understand how to create the right messaging for them. And so we would ask, there are 3 kinds of data that we can choose from. And 8 out of 10 clients typically would send us their customer database, right? Using your own customer data is the best way. The second way, for example, in the consumer packaged good industry, they don't really have individual level sales data. And so syndicated data is a great proxy in those instances. And sometimes clients have new products and brands and new categories where there isn't any research. And so custom research is what we do well, and that can help fill in those gaps. So once we've chosen that data, the next thing to do is get to work. And so in this example, client X sent us 175,000 of their customer records. Now we work with small clients who send us tens of thousands of records to some of our largest clients who send us hundreds of millions of records. And Claritas has that capability and scale to be able to handle those size of files. Once we've done that, we QC the data, and then we append our syndicated segmentation. And since I was a Prism Premier subscriber, we utilize this household level segmentation to append one of 68 different segments to it. Now, obviously, nobody can go out and target 68 segments. You'd go crazy and mad trying to do that. So we wanted to group those 68 segments into 3 to 5 target groups. So let me show you how that process works. The first thing we wanted to do is identify 2 key business drivers to help group those customers. The first was a behavior. We always wanted to start with sales or revenue or something that showed us those people who are walking through the door. Because the one thing that we needed to make sure we do was not forget about the core, those people who are making that cash register ring. The 20/80 rule is still applies to many businesses where 20% of your customers are delivering 80% of your revenue, and we needed to know who those people were. But also as important was building a mindset. And a mindset can be built off of a shared value, an attitude, a likelihood to do something. And that was really important because it included those people that weren't walking through your door, but should, and people that were your competitors may be performing better against. And you needed to understand why, and that's why mindsets were so important. And at the agency, obviously most agencies have a availability to MRI, and MRI is coded with all of our data. So as I was working in MRI, I could look at the 14 to 1,500 different variables that they had around attitudes and likelihood and shared values and things like that, and cross-tab it against Prism Premier, all I can tell you was it was like the holy grail for someone trying to build a customer target. Once we figure those two drivers out, we needed to build the mindset. And in MRI, like I was talking about, I was able to run all that data and then do a quick and simple correlation analysis against my clients' customers' records by Prism Premier codes. And some really unique insights would pop out. So this is for an online retailer where their customer base had a very high household income. And one of the insights that we found was their customers were spending $2,000+ annually on clothing, which if you're spending that much, you should feel proud of yourself. You're in the top 4% of people who buy clothes. That's a lot of money being spent on clothes. But some of the other unique insights that we found were they were well-rounded, and that image was important to them. They exercised regularly, they ate well, and they traveled. But one of the biggest insights for this client, who had actually a very large customer service team, was their customers were very tech savvy, actually scored the highest that you can score. And what we found out was they didn't care about customer service because they were super smart and tech savvy, and they knew how to Google and find out all the information that they wanted. But what they really needed was a platform that ensured them that the products they were buying were verified and they weren't going to get scammed. And that's why their site was so important. This all was integrated into this mindset. So when you get to that fancy target name or that fancy mindset that we all create, because it always sounds better, the data that was utilized behind it was driven by the great research in MRI, but that Prism Premier and that linkage because of our ability to link to our partners' data sets. And so when you see this mindset and the demographics and attitudes that go into it, it's because of all of this. And without it, it's not possible, and you have a very subjective approach. And clients love a data-driven approach, and there'll always be some art in the science, but we love more science than art. So once you have your behavioral data and your mindset built, it's time to take all those clusters and throw them up onto a chart. Now, this was always famously regarded as the bubble chart, but it's a 2x2 or a quad chart. And what's really important to remember about this chart is the horizontal axis is that behavior, right? The sales data. And the vertical axis is that mindset that we built. And we throw all 68 segments on here. We've taken some off because we really just wanted to focus up in that upper right quadrant, because this was a new client and a new brand, and they really wanted to focus on their core because they knew that core was there was lots of room for growth. And so once you throw your customers on here, you start grouping them together, and you can see here on the right side of the screen, once you've got them grouped, you then create your fancy little target groups, which you can see we have Lisa and so on. But again, all very data driven. But what's really important in a persona, for example, is when a creative guy comes, he doesn't care about the numbers as much. What they want to see is the blurb here, so that they can get a little nugget, so they can get a spark and create that magic in that message that's really impactful on screen or online. But if you're a strategist where you need to understand the brands are consuming or the media they're using or what's going on in their life, the rest of the persona is very helpful. Again, this is the identify section where it's really important to understand who's walking through your door, what makes them tick, and so that when we get to the deliver and optimize section, which is next, this is where a lot of that magic happens. And this is really what separates Claritas versus a lot of our competitors. So let's talk about deliver, right? So again, lots of questions. We get a lot of questions from marketers around this deliver section, right? How do I determine which channels are more effective? When I think about my email campaign, I feel like it could be more effective. Can you help us with that? And there's a host of other questions that we can answer, but again, 30 minutes, so we're trying to keep it short. So when we think about executing a seamless multi-channel campaign, we go back to the identity graph, lots of data, insights into your customers. And the beauty and the reason that I partnered with Claritas as a client was because of this connectivity or this data unifier as I talked about a little earlier. So whether I was going and planning TV, where the Nielsen TV sample base is coded with our data, and I could actually see how my targets watch TV versus adults 25 to 54, who is like a block of 60% of the population. I knew that every time I performed this analysis for my client, they would see 15 to 20% improvement on their TV buys. And as you work your way down all the way through digital, whether that was display or social, all this data can be activated within your platforms. So no more trying to build proxies and how do we get this awesome target group to fit into our tools. All you have to do is through a click of a button, you can access your segments and you're off to the races. And that's the beauty of working with Claritas. Matter of fact, as we're talking about working with Claritas, we work with our clients in multiple different ways. A lot of clients use us for their full service marketing capabilities. And that's awesome and we love it. Certain clients utilize us only, they love our data, but they'll say, hey, Patrick, I got 40 analysts. We can handle the heavy lifting, but we need your data because it's integral into our models. And then we have a lot of clients obviously in between who we say, if you have a problem, we have a solution, and they utilize us as much as possible. And I'll show you an example here in a second. One of the really hot things that we're working with clients a lot because of our identity graph is executing more effective email campaigns. I go back to the 330 million emails that are tied to physical addresses, the 125 active email addresses that we have online. And then if you take all these insights that we just talked about, the lists that we're building for our clients are performing higher than we've ever seen them. And a lot of times clients will say, hey, I've got all these other customer records where I don't have email addresses and I'm not even sure they're accurate. Can you guys help us with that? And we do a lot of that with our clients as well. And because of our new technology and our long-standing email expertise, we've developed a unique 3x deployment. A lot of times clients will deploy the emails once and see how it goes. Our 3x deployment is seeing significant improvement. And for example, overall open rates are 2 to 3 times higher than the industry average. And even click-through rates we're seeing at a 5 to 7x improvement. So lots of exciting things going on in the email space. But if you were to ask me what's my most favorite thing about working with Claritas is our innovative spirit. Because whether we're talking about customer research, working with trying to deliver, or as Omer is going to talk about the optimization in a second, not everything is cut and dry. Sometimes there are problems that don't have solutions, and this is one of them. One of our large clients came to us and said, Patrick, I'm opening up some stores and I'm putting new campaigns, new creative campaigns in them, and I need to understand how they're performing and how they're impacting sales. But COVID, I can't get any survey company to help me out with this. Is there anything you can do? And I said, give me a couple days, let me come back to you. And I did, and I came back and I said, hey, look, we geofence, because we do a lot of geofencing work for you. We know your store locations, and so why don't we geofence those store locations, understand the visitors coming through it, match those visitors through their mobile device to the ID graph, and then let's send a survey to them in both display and email, and then see the responses. And we're towards the end of this campaign, and can I tell you, it's like I said, it's one of the first of its kind. The insights we're gaining are amazing, and while there were bumps in the road and things we needed to figure out, this is the future of survey work, and it's super exciting. So covered identify, deliver, and now I'm turning it over to Omer, who's going to walk you through the optimization process.
Great, thank you so much, Patrick, and I'm excited to sort of take you guys through the last component, the last silo, Optimize. As Patrick shared with you, Claritas built a foundation around identifying your best customers, and now more recently allowing brands to really action on that, those insights that they receive, and target those customers across various platforms. So I come from the business, from the legacy barometric platform. As Patrick shared, we were acquired by Claritas. So we are really focused on cross-environment, cross-device measurement and attribution. So let's get into that a bit. So again, as Patrick shared, brands always have many questions. In our space, in the sort of the measurement space, the singular question, the foundational question is, my campaign working? You can see some of these ancillary questions, but ultimately, how do we prove that our media dollars that we're investing are returning? on ad spend, and that's really what we're focused on enhancing for our clients, their ability to really capture that that analysis. So where does ClearTouch Optimize fit in? As you can see here on the left side of the screen, this kind of funnel approach, we built a multi-channel measurement solution. So, in our foundational sort of 6-7 years ago, we were really focused on that challenge of mobile cross-environment tracking. As many of you know, different mobile environments, you have in-app, mobile web. It's still a challenge today to be able to stitch those IDs together because they're disparate. That's really where we focused on initially. And then since that time, the other area that Patrick shared with you that we really built out was this ID graph or device graph, as some people refer to it. So, it's this aggregation of devices at a household level, which enables us to track and measure across some of these other environments that you see. So, out of home, again, out of home is an offline environment, mobile, display, search and social. Like others with search and social, there are some limitations from a walled garden approach, but we have ability to track clicks, email, OTT, CTV, as well as audio. Audio is a really exciting space that I'll spend a few minutes talking about in a few slides. But we're a pixel-based solution. So when our pixels are appended to these media delivery vehicles, we can track that exposure data. And then as you see in the middle of the funnel, conversions, conversions can be a simple web-based visit or purchase. It can be app-based, it can be geo-visitation. Again, Patrick alluded to our capabilities around capturing geo-visitation data. And then some of our newer offerings are really focused on the CPG space, as well as credit card purchase. So we're always expanding our ability to capture more conversions, which has been really exciting. And then ultimately, once we're able to do that, once we're able to measure the effectiveness, we can tie it back to all the other Claritas data to allow our clients to understand, hey, which audiences worked, which media strategies worked for their campaigns, so they can sort of fine tune and again, optimize their measurement or their media efforts going forward. So the ClearTouch Optimize solutions, currently we kind of are focused on two areas, what I'll call campaign attribution and campaign lift. So really quickly, campaign attribution really refers to simply being able to capture an exposure, whatever environment that exposure takes place in, and then being able to attribute a conversion to that exposure. Most commonly, the way we attribute conversions is through appending our site or property pixels on the conversion environment. So if that's online, we have pixels on the environment. If it's in-app, we have integrations with all the primary in-app SDK providers, so we can capture all the fire hose of in-app data. We have geolocation partners that allow us to capture that data. So again, it's being able to connect the conversions to the exposure data, and that's one-to-one. The challenge with one-to-one is that most of our clients, they're not just running in one channel or in one media channel. They have multiple channels live at the same time. So they might be running search, display, mobile, audio. So this is where campaign lift becomes really important. We're able to isolate the effect of a specific channel on that brand's conversion funnel. So for example, podcast, obviously podcast is getting a lot of excitement in the last couple of years from an advertiser standpoint. But many of these advertisers want to understand, hey, I'm spending across these other channels. How is podcast going to incrementally affect my conversion path and my conversions? So we're able to isolate the effect of the podcast media and really tease out and demonstrate the incremental effect that it has for our clients. So again, I just sort of was sharing about podcasts, but everyone understands also that in this audio space, there's streaming. One of the big differentiators that Claritas brings to the marketplace is that not only are we able to measure the podcast ecosystem, but we're also able to measure streaming. So we can bring this sort of holistic audio measurement capability to the marketplace. So again, we can do standard attribution as well as lift analysis. You can see a few of our partners. We work with 10 to 20 big platforms, publishers in the audio space, not to mention all the agencies and brands that we work directly with. And for those of you who are maybe potentially more interested in the audio measurement opportunity, we do have a white paper. So we recently published a white paper to really talk about podcast lift. And it goes really through the methodology. So I encourage anyone that's interested to follow up after this webinar. Happy to share that with you. And what's nice is that our methodology, lift methodology, applies to all channels. So whereas the white paper is focused on podcast, you can get a sense of how we do what we do, which is truly innovative from a lift incrementality standpoint. I'll call out, I think everyone thinks about sort of holdout in digital control group analysis or creation. The challenge with holdout is it can be costly, and brands don't necessarily want to spend or allocate non-working media dollars to creating a control group, whereas we're able to sort of do that on the fly with no incremental costs associated. So coming back to sort of the foundational aspect, as I talked about, connecting the ad exposure to conversions, I talked about that, but what's in the middle? You can see sort of offline digital media exposure channels. On the conversion side, you can see whether it's digital, app-based, or offline. But ultimately, as Patrick referred to, the device graph really enables all of this attribution. So what we're doing is we're contextualizing the exposures through the identifiers that we receive from our pixel on exposure into the device graph that allows us to understand the household and all the digital and offline identities that household has. Then on the back side, our pixel is capturing these identifiers upon conversion and matching them up, bumping them up against the graph for matching and attribution. So again, I think this is well documented. Everyone knows that each consumer's purchase journey is truly unique. And through our offering, we're able to, again, measure various channels to understand, hey, it's not just last touch attribution. Let's understand the various touch points that a consumer was exposed to prior to that ultimate digital or offline conversion. And this is all available in sort of aggregate as well as raw data form. So we're really excited about that. But ultimately, again, using the Claritas data to really draw an accurate picture of who this person is and who your best customers are. So how clients use Claritas Optimize solutions, these are sort of three pillars that I'll talk briefly about: validating media plans using a trusted, independent third-party provider, being Claritas, understanding the return on the marketing investment, learning what's working and what isn't, and investing in future in the right strategy. So independent validation of media plans, these are just some top-line metrics that we can provide in terms of reach, frequency, impression allocation to the various segmented groups. What you see here is some of the names of the Claritas Prism Premier clusters. So we can really understand what are the top indexing segments, not only from a reach analysis, but also from a conversion standpoint. And then I'm not going to spend too much time here because I've spoken about this a little, but really understanding the return on the investment. Here you can sort of see the highlighted lift analysis where you have that comparison between an exposed group and a control group. And in this example, you can see that we were able to understand that there was a almost 28% lift for the specific media channel that we were measuring for this example. And then finally, as I alluded to, understanding who are those people that are most often converting or highest indexing from a conversion standpoint. You can now take this data and work with Claritas or work with other platform solutions to enable targeting of Claritas segments, which is really exciting. So really having the intelligence to create smarter marketing initiatives going forward. And then just one more sort of point on attribution. We have flexibility. We have a UI. We can sort of toggle different sort of data sets within the attribution platform. This one being attribution windows or look back windows. Our standard is 30 days. Depending on the brand that we're working with, if it's a high ticket, long sales cycle, that might go 45, 60 days. Or if it's a sort of a quick turnaround product, it might be a 7-day window or even less than that. So we have this ability, and again, this guarantees sort of that we're not attributing conversions that shouldn't be attributed to a specific media touch point or exposure. But again, you can get a sense from this slide how it all fits together. Patrick took you through sort of understanding like hey, helping to understand who are our best audiences, and then enabling the activation against those audiences, and then importantly, being able to really measure the effectiveness of these marketing activities. So that kind of sums up the presentation. I guess we'll sort of end it with, we want to throw this offer out to everyone. You guys have been so patient. We appreciate everyone's interest in this presentation. We want to help you identify the right audiences for your campaigns. So you can see here the steps. Go to www.claritas.com, MadCon-4D-audiences. Then sort of give us some information about your campaign start and stop dates. Let us know the preferred platform, i.e. Facebook if it's social, and then describe your campaign objectives, and we will have some folks free of charge put in some work and sort of come back to you with some strategy and insights of how we can potentially help you with that. So I guess on behalf of Patrick and myself and the entire Claritas team, we're really excited to be a part of MadCon this year, and really want to thank everyone for your interest. And you see our contact information here. Please don't hesitate to follow up with Patrick and myself. We'd love to engage with you guys and ultimately help you drive better return on ad spend. So thank you, and good day.
Thank you, guys.